Hello, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our latest Apps Events Google Admin Summit. My name is Peter Horner. I'm based in the UK, and today I'm joined by Charlie Love. Hi, Charlie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Peter. And I too am based in the UK, but I'm up here in glorious sunny Scotland. So it's all great. And looking forward to our chat today, where we're going to look at just chatting a little bit about GAM and tips for Google Classroom, and just how this being the start of a new term and what that might mean for admins. And we'll maybe just go through a few things that might be useful.
Amazing. Yeah, so let's get started, shall we? But first, just like to thank Acer. Big thanks to Acer for actually sponsoring all of these free admin and teaching and learning summits, which happen every month without fail. And I'm a huge fan of Chromebooks, and Acer make some of my favorite Chromebooks. So definitely check out those guys. And also just wanted to highlight that if you are already using Google Workspace and on the Fundamentals edition, worth checking out appsevents.com/workspace to get a 60-day free trial of Education Plus. So you can try out some of the more advanced features in Google Meet, things like originality reports, and some of the more advanced security features which are available. So yeah, let's get started and talk about GAM, which is one of my favorite tools, but probably one of the most powerful tools in my admin toolbox of Google Workspace tools, which I use a lot at the start of term, like you just mentioned, Charlie.
Yeah, so I mean, today, GAM's fantastic, right? It does all those wonderful things that you kind of want to do quickly as an admin. And today's focus is about what works with Google Classroom. So we're going to take you through today some pretty straightforward setup things. There's a few talking points we'll get to, and a few interesting things that just how GAM works, or what the Google APIs allow you to do and what they don't allow you to do. We'll maybe touch on some of those points. But today we're going to take you through creating courses, listing out those courses, a few different ways to do that. And we're going to share some cool app script stuff as well. And then how you add teachers and students to your courses. You can sync them and what the difference is between syncing and adding. And we'll chat about that as well. And then we'll talk about syncing OUs to your Google Classroom teacher group, so that you can make sure it's your teachers who are creating your classes and not your students. And then finally, we'll wrap that up by looking at Guardian Access and how that works, and a few of the things around setting that up. So that's kind of just a quick overview for what we're going to do today. Now, because we've got so many different things going on today, right, there's quite a lot happening and quite a lot of things we're going to share. So we've wrapped them all up in this link here. You probably want to grab a quick screenshot of this, so you've got the URL, you can go to that. And what that will give you is it'll give you access to this wakelet. And in this wakelet, what we've got is we've just pulled together all of the links for today. There's a video here about how to install GAM in Google Cloud Shell, which is a great way to deploy it. We've got the deck from today, so if you want to go and review the deck again, you can quickly go and do that online. And links to GAM and some template files in Google Sheets that we've created for you to use, and to use for some of the scripts that we're going to talk about today. So that is just us looking at what's in the wakelet and what you can see there.
And on that, everyone, I just really highly recommend Charlie's video on setting up GAM in the cloud shell. It's definitely the best way of doing that. It's always accessible then, isn't it, from whatever device you're on? And it's a super helpful video for getting started. And it's actually really easy, isn't it?
It is, Peter, and thanks very much for that shout out on that one. Yeah, it's a pretty good way to deploy GAM, because you've got it in the shell, in the cloud shell, as you say, access from anywhere, any device, anytime, really handy. Okay, so let's go on and talk a little bit about bulk creating courses. So this is probably, I don't know about you, Peter, but this is the kind of the thing that you do at the start of the year, right? You've got your new session, your new timetable, your new students starting and new teachers starting, and you're wanting to create all of your courses and get them built. So at the start of the year, you can pull all that data together to create your courses. And you can use a GAM script to do that. You can do them one by one if you really want to, but the best way to do it is to do them in bulk using GAM's CSV commands. So what GAM will allow you to do is put a heap of data in a CSV file and then load that into your Cloud Shell. You can just upload it and then you can reference it. So you can say GAM, CSV, whatever the CSV file is called. And then you can tag on the GAM command you want to use and just use the title plus the name of the column headings that you've put into your CSV file. So in this case, we're creating courses. And what I've done here is shown you the GAM command to create a course. And then below that in bold, I've given you the command to do this in bulk. And the interesting thing to notice, folks, is that when you provision classes and courses rather in this way, when you provision them, the best way to do it is to provision them as either provisioned or active. And provisioned is neat because provisioned means that the class is created, the classroom is there, but it's not actually live. So it doesn't become live until the teacher accepts their invitation to that classroom and accesses that class. So provisioned is a great way to set everything up in advance, and then your teachers decide when it goes live. When they use it, when they join it, that's when that classroom goes live. Peter, I don't know if that's something that you use. Or...
It is. I do it slightly differently now, actually. As all of the classes I create, they're not owned by the teacher. I use a service account in the background, which we use to own all those classes, just to get around issues with teachers leaving or changing subjects. And then we don't get into any issues around transferring classroom ownership. So that's one of the changes I did a couple of years ago, which has kind of smoothed out those problems for me.
Yeah, that's a really neat idea. So you create everybody, you got one master account that has access to all of the ownership of all the classes.
Yeah, pretty much. So we're quite a big college, so I've got an account for each department. It's also really useful then for those departmental directors, so they can switch user to that account and go into any of their classes in their department, and it doesn't clog up their view of Google Classroom, and it keeps it a bit more streamlined for them. That's the way I like that as well.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. So folks, that's something to consider when you're looking at creating your courses, that kind of approach. So what I've got here is you can use these commands in GAM to create your classrooms, provisioned or active. And I've also given you inside the wakelet, there's a course template with all the information that you can propagate to in that template to make your CSV file and just download it from Google Sheets and upload it to GAM and then execute that command. So I've tried to make it really easy, straightforward for you to use those commands and take that forward. Okay.
Before we move on, not all of those fields are required, are they, Charlie? You've got some extras in here.
Yeah, I've got some extras. The ones that are absolutely required are the course identifier. So you need the alias or you need the course ID in there. So you need, sorry, what am I speaking about? Come back, I'm jumping forward, Peter, to the next one. Right, not all of those are required. So when you create the course, it'll automatically get a course ID assigned to it. That's a long number that Google just creates automatically, right? Aliases, the course, I think pretty much most of these are optional, if I remember correctly. Certainly section and heading and description and room are all optional. You need to have an owner for the classroom. So the teacher needs to be there, and it does need to have a status. So either provisioned or active would be in there as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you need the name, Peter, from a memory.
Definitely, definitely need a name. Yeah, as you say, I think all of the others are optional. And a teacher, you need a teacher as well, as it needs to be owned by someone, of course. But yeah, so cool. Thanks for that.
Name, teacher, and status are the key ones you've got to have in there. Grand. Okay, so Once you've created all these courses, of course, you might want to get, now you can work with aliases. So if you set up aliases, a keys, CS123 or something like that as an alias for your class. So if you set that up, then you can work with aliases for all of your classes if you want to. But you may not have set up aliases for some classes. You may choose not to do that, in which case you're going to want to grab the the course IDs and get those out. So you're going to need to list them out. Now you can do that with GAM really easily, and you can ask GAM to GAM print courses and then just pipe that into a CSV file. That will work. Or you can write it out to Google Drive as well. And what that will do, GAM will run, and then it will create you a Google Sheets file, and it will then post the link to that Google Sheets file for you. So you can get that information that way. And the important thing is here, you need to get the lists of the courses out so that you can then, if you're using course ID, for example, in subsequent tasks, you can then add teachers and add students and refer to the course IDs when you are adding those teachers, students, or updating the class settings in some other way. Okay, so that's listing courses. So you can do it with GAM. It's pretty straightforward. I tend not to do it with GAM, I'll be honest, right? And because it gives me an awful lot of stuff I don't really want. Now, I think you can probably change the query, change the GAM command to limit the columns that you get, right? So you could invest a bit of time and craft that to give you just the information you want. But it gives you quite a lot of stuff that you don't really need in terms of admin, because it gives you things like grade book settings and such. So what I tend to do is I actually, well, I've got my own script that I'll show you in a second that I use for this. You could, if you wanted to, also use GAM to just print out for specific teachers. So I've used the GAM CSV file commands here to just print courses for particular teachers. So if I've got a list of teacher emails and I want to print the courses that those teachers own, I could just run this through and it would print me, create me a file with new courses.csv, which would be all the course information from GAM. But actually, Peter, your method of having just a limited number of accounts responsible for the Google Classrooms when you create them actually would work really well with this, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But despite doing that, teachers still create their own classes. So I do find myself frequently having to run a command like this to find out what class someone's created in order to add either another student onto that class or change teachers. So still really useful to be able to kind of easily do this from the command line.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think so. This is being able to list out and see what individual teachers have. You can do that with this setting, and this also works with students as well. So if you change GAM print courses teacher and the teacher's email address, if you change that to GAM print courses student, you'll get a listing out for that student as well, which is neat. Okay, so the way I tend to do this, right, is I want a particular sets of information out, and I like to have it in quite a managed way. Call it my OCD or whatever it is, right? So I've written an app script that you can get. There's the link to it there, folks. And with that app script, let me just jump over and actually let you see what that is. So that's on, it's on GitHub. You can get it in here, and it's just this app script here. What it will do when you run through it, it will create you a Google Sheets file with some neatly organized columns for your output. You'll get in there, you'll get the class owner, the owner ID, the org path. So you actually see the organizational unit path for the user who owns that classroom. I like that because it lets me see which staff in which schools have which particular classrooms, right? So it gives me a bit more information and a whole load of other stuff about that. So that's there. You can use that script. And what's also neat about that script is you can set that up to work on a trigger. So I can get prints. I can generate that every day, so I can get data over time if I want from that Google Classroom listing. So I can see how Google Classrooms change over time if I really want to. So that's there, and there's a link to that again in the Wakelet that we've got there.
I've actually used the script. It works really well.
Thanks,
Great
Peter.
work.
Yeah, cheers. It's a neat one, and yeah, it just helps make things a little easier when you're trying to list out all your Google Classrooms. So you're listing your Google Classrooms because you want to do something else with them, right? So let's move on to that. So one of the key things you want to do is you want to add teachers or add students to courses. So GAM has a command for this. Use GAM. Oh,
I think we lost you then, Charlie. You okay?
yeah, I'm here. It's all right. I think I'm back. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
you're
you've
back.
got so you've got GAM. You can use GAM, course ID, or alias, right? So you can use one or the other. Both of them need to be unique. So you can have a course ID or a course alias, and then you can say add student or add teacher, and then their email address. So this is really straightforward to use. You've got a bunch of student email addresses, and you've got a bunch of classes, Google Classrooms you want them to be allocated to, the courses that you want. You can just run those in a CSV file, and you can just use that CSV file to add them all automatically to all of the courses that you've already set up. So it's a neat way to do it. You can use the two commands I've got there for teachers and students. I've got templates for both teachers and students in the Wakelet. And you can just use those templates to generate your CSV file and run those commands. Really, really straightforward, and really time saving as well. You're not having your classroom teachers aren't manually adding students. I know they've got invite codes and so on, but if you've got the data sitting in your school management system, you know which students are in which classes. If you have that information, why not set it all up really quickly using GAM? Peter, I think that's what you do, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much. I use AppScript to create the initial courses, and then I use the sync command actually, which I think you'll come onto in a little bit to sync the users from a group.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do use this method occasionally as well. If there's like a one-off course someone wants set up for a particular year group, or a school club or something else running, which might not be timetabled in the same way, in which case we can really easily do it from here. I'm always pleasantly surprised by how quickly these scripts run with GAM. It's super fast, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredibly fast. Yeah, I mean, I was trying something last night, and just to list, I listed out 43,000 classrooms, right, from one of my domains. 43,000 classrooms, and it just took about 3 or 4 minutes to do all of that, and write that all out to a Sheets file. So, I mean, it was incredible. So, yeah, really powerful and really quick. Yeah. Okay, so let's go on. And I mean, I was going to mention here, again, this is one of those things. I tend to do this once a year, right? I do the big setup, and then I allow the teachers to manage their classes going forward. So I can do the big setup stuff at the beginning, and then let folks manage it from there on. Is kind of the way that I treat it, rather than try and keep it all up to date with leavers and joiners. But you can keep it up to date with leavers and joiners if you're using sync rather than add. And so we'll talk about the difference there just now. Yeah, Peter, I'm going to ask you to explain the difference between sync and add, right?
Sure. Yeah. So add's really simple, isn't it? Add or remove. You're adding users or removing users. Sync, that's doing it all for you in a single command. So it will, first of all, look at who's already on that course, Google Classroom. And let's, for example, say we're going to sync users who are all members of a particular group which has been set up for that class. So when it's going to compare the group membership against the classroom membership and do all the adds or removals based on that, based on those differences. So it's how I do it, actually. So I've got a script which runs at our college, which automatically creates all of our class groups on our domain. So now I know those are all up to date. I can just sync our newly created classrooms against our class groups. And yeah, it not works very reliably, and is a super quick way of doing that. But you can also sync against other things as well. It's not just groups. You can sync against an org unit. You can sync against a CSV file, or you could do a GAM query based on some other attribute you want to search for your users based on. So how do you sync much, Charlie?
I haven't used Sync much, I'll be honest, but actually, when I was working through the prep for this today, I was just thinking, actually, do you know what? Often I've got classes that run with the same class groups across multiple subjects. So actually, what I was thinking there was, I could really just have a master class that's provisioned but not active, a bit like using a group, to be fair. And then I could just sync to that course. So just sync from that course into all the other ones.
Yeah,
that might be a way to do it. So I was just thinking last night, there's something neat I could do there. So to be continued. I think there's definitely something I can start doing that I haven't been doing before. Yeah. So that GAM command is pretty good. It's pretty powerful. It allows you to, as Peter said, link to a whole range of different sources for doing that sync. And as I said, sync is great because it it will manage those levers and joiners. So rather than you manually doing it, it'll just say, take us through that. So do you do a lot of sync work with and from ManageBack? Peter, I'm asking about this one from ManageBack.
ManageBack. That doesn't ring any bells for me. But you can, as we said, you can sync from CSV files. So if you wanted to fully automate your Google Classroom membership, you could have your MIS system automatically outputting these CSV files into a particular location, and GAM could read those every day to keep all of your courses up to date. So that's one way of doing it. But yeah, sorry, I'm not familiar with ManageBack, but yeah, do drop us a line and we can drill down into that question in a bit more detail if you need help.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can have a little closer look at that one and see if there's some magic we can work on that. Grand. So syncing is great, folks. It'll help you manage your levers and joiners, as we've said. Classroom teachers. Now, this is one of my kind of eureka moments, right? So I had a whole set of situations where at one point I had students creating classrooms because, with Google Classroom, the way it works is Google Classroom, the default setting is that you self-declare who you are when you go to classroom.google.com. You say whether you're a student or whether you're a teacher. And then if you go for the option of teacher, what happens is Google, it automatically puts you into the classroom teachers group in your domain, but it puts you in as pending. And what it does by default, it says that pending members of that group and verified members of that group, full members of that group, can create Google Classrooms. That's not always necessarily a good thing, because you've got people who are saying that they're teachers, potentially, who aren't teachers, right? And so there's an option here. What you can do is you can change the rules here. So you can go into the admin console and you can change under apps, Google Workspace, Classroom, general settings, teacher permissions. You can change it to say only verified teachers can create classrooms. And then you can use a GAM command to sync the members of staff you've got in your organizational units. So in this case, what I have is I have an OU called staff, and then it's all broken down into sub OUs beneath that and schools and so on. But all of my staff are inside or in a descendant of that staff OU. So what I do is I can use GAM update group, classroom teachers, whatever your domain is, and I can say sync the members of, and the members for that group are going to be synced, and they're going to come out of the OU staff and any child OUs of that. So if you just say OU staff, it won't do any of the children. It'll just ignore them, right? So you have to say OU and children to get all of the descendants included as well in terms of staff. So that's a key command. That's something to run probably pretty frequently in your domain if you want to only have verified teachers creating classrooms. So yeah, that's one that I do recommend folks have a look at. Otherwise, you can end up with a bit of the Wild West with students creating classrooms, and of course, when students create classrooms, they will have access potentially to guardian details and guardian contacts. So you probably want to think in your organization, you probably don't want that. You probably want just your verified teachers. So you need to pull it together for some management. Peter, your context is a little different, but I don't know, what do you do around any of this?
I do exactly as you described here. I think this is a great way of doing it, Charlie. Definitely verified teachers only. As you can say, it can turn into the Wild West of Google Classroom, and staff won't have visibility of these classes which are being created. So definitely have verified teachers only. And yeah, syncing against an OU if you've got just all of your active staff in a single OU or in the child OUs on the staff. Yeah, do it that way. It works perfectly.
Yeah. So it's a good tip there, folks. And because the default settings are pretty open, you do want to go and have a look at this. Might be something you've not looked at yet, but we do recommend you go and check it out, lock it down to verified teachers, and then use some sort of syncing like this sync command here to get the right teachers approved and verified in that classroom teachers group. Okay, so next one is a kind of a big job that you might want to do. I tend to do this again once, maybe twice a year, and that's around Guardian access. Now, Guardian access is turned on by default in K-12s. If you're in higher education, it's off by default in terms of Google Workspace for Education. Guardian access gives Guardian summaries, invites Guardians to view Guardian summaries. So we've got this is a good question here. Peter, just I'm going to jump into that. Yeah, can we bulk decline pending teachers?
Can we bulk decline pending teachers? I've had this question before. Can we bulk decline pending teachers? I have a feeling, though, I had to do this via AppScript. I'm trying to remember why.
I have another way to do this, which is kind of bulk, right? If you go to groups.google.com, you can do it from the groups management interface. So you can show, it's got a folder for all the pending. So you can click on the pending and you can just decline them. So you can do a group select, a bulk select, to use a tick box, select all of them, and then decline them. So you could do that in groups.google.com. You can't do it from the admin console. At least I haven't found a way to do it from there, but you can do it from groups.google.com.
Isn't it better asking about classroom though? So pending, pending teachers in the classroom group. So I was thinking teachers who hadn't accepted a class. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I'm hoping Melissa's talking about
the classroom
pending
group.
teachers in the classroom teachers group.
Sure. Yeah. That's why I just empty that group out every so often and just resync it with our active users. Yeah.
And if you change the admin setting to verify teachers only, it doesn't matter who's in pending. You can just forget about them and then just do the sync, Peter, as we were talking about, to sync all your staff into that particular group. And if you don't want to and if you're not using GAM and not using sync, folks, remember that you can export users from the admin console as a CSV file, and then you can use that CSV file and to add into the group if you want. So you can do that. Okay. So in terms of guardians, really a guardian is just a parent or a carer who's going to get notifications about that student's activities, whether it's a child or a student. They'll get notifications about that. They'll get invited to get their guardian summaries. And really what you're doing here is you're associating a student with a guardian. There is a limit a student cannot have more than 20 guardians assigned to them, right? So that's the limit. 20 is heaps, folks. I mean, I don't know why you'd be wanting to do 20 people, but one student can have a maximum of 20 guardians associated with them. And so you can just use this script here. Again, what I've got here is I've got a wee template for it, where you put in the guardian email addresses, the student email addresses, and you run this GAM command here to do that and creates guardian invites. And this will add the guardians, invite the guardians, so send them an email to sign up, do they want to get it? So you're not forcing them to receive it, you're inviting them to receive the guardian summaries. So there's a template for that in the Wakelet that I showed you earlier that you can use, and it's pretty straightforward. Now, one of the things that's probably worthwhile talking about is that guardian summaries, they are on by default in K-12 Google for Education, so that's there. However, there is no API access to turn them on or off for individual classrooms. That has to be done through the classroom settings interface. So individual teachers or the individual owners of the classrooms have to go in and change their settings, right? And if they do, you can see whether it's enabled or not from the GAM listings. Whether from GAM classroom listings, you can see whether Guardian Summaries is enabled or not, but you can't change that setting through the API. You've got to go into the classroom settings and do it. So that's worthwhile to think about. So if you want Guardians to receive summaries, and some teachers have switched it off, you need to communicate with those teachers to say, we're doing this as an establishment, our school, our college, whatever, we want to send these home, you need to go and turn this on. And there will be some classrooms where it's not appropriate to turn them on, and some where it is. So you've got to have those discussion and that dialogue and communication with folks when you do that kind of work. So that's the Guardian summaries and the fact that you can turn them on or off through the classroom settings. You can, of course, also turn on or off the ability to have Guardians via the admin console as well. So if you go into Classroom and Apps Classroom, you'll be able to see the settings for turning on or off Guardian summaries for your domain or a specific OU. Okay then, so we're just about there, folks. Really just open this up to any questions folks have got around using GAM, Google Classroom Admin, anything you might have, anything you might be interested in relation to this, anything that you think you would like to do that we haven't shown you today. Happy to take a few questions.
Yeah, or if you've got a GAM command you use which we've not mentioned for managing Google Classroom, yeah, please share that as well. But I think thanks for that, Charlie. I think that's a really kind of a very thorough overview of the power of GAM in managing Classroom, really, which otherwise managing Classroom would be pretty hard, wouldn't it? Because there's no real way of doing it in the Google Admin Console currently.
Yeah, that's right. And so there's no easy way to do it at the moment in the Admin Console. You're kind of you have to, using these commands is the kind of key way to do it as an admin, and gives you that power to do it for your whole organization or specific OUs and so on. So yeah.
Absolutely, and GAM is free, so it's a free, easy way, once you've learnt these few commands, of discovering what classrooms are on your domain and easily be able to manage teachers and students on those.
Yeah, got a good smashing comment here from Dan. Yeah, absolutely right. Dan, GAM is amazing. It's just so powerful, so much stuff that you can do with it as a Google Workspace admin. If folks haven't looked at it, please do. We've got a whole load of videos on our YouTube channel, the Apps Events YouTube channel, a whole load of videos that talk about how to use GAM for different pieces of work. Go and have a look at that. Let's look at the kind of amazing things that you can do with it and the power that it gives you.
It's not just Google Classroom, is it? It's almost every single API Google have got. GAM can interface with that and provides you an easy way of just using the command line to interrogate those APIs and manage everything on your domain, from creating users, groups, classrooms, through to yeah, there's so much you can do with it now, isn't there?
Yeah,
We didn't talk about GAM Advanced very much really today, have we? Is it worth
yeah, Peter. I think it's probably
mentioning that
worthwhile
briefly?
because we've kind of got two flavors of GAM, right? So there's the original GAM, which is actually maintained by a few Googlers, um, uh, who kind of maintain that, and then there's a kind of extension of that. Peter, over to you about GAM Advanced.
So GAM Advanced offers many more options for managing different services on a domain. There's a great Google site actually, which if I just do a quick search, I'll drop into the chat, which covers all the things you can do with GAM Advanced. So I normally recommend, rather than installing GAM, just go straight to GAM Advanced. That runs in the Cloud Shell, like we described earlier. That can be installed there. I think your video discusses installing that version. Is that right, Charlie? Or
The
do you install
installation,
them?
I used the original GAM in that video, but the process is actually really similar, and the
Yeah.
step through and the way to step through it is pretty much the same, folks. So I wouldn't be put off whether it's GAM or GAM Advanced you're installing. It's a very similar process that you go through, and as Peter says, there are just a few add-ons and a few additional things that GAM Advanced will give you that you might not have in the standard version of GAM. So it's worthwhile exploring that and seeing what you can get out of that.
And once you've enjoyed the power of GAM, then maybe start looking at AppScript as well, as then that gives you, like on Charlie's script he shared earlier, much a finer level of control, and you can really script some clever stuff in there. So, for example, the classrooms I create at the beginning of the year, I'm using AppScript for creating those because I want a particular user to be added to manage those classes. But then I do still use GAM alongside my AppScript to sync members of those classes onto Google Classroom from a group. So yeah, if you are interested by GAM and want to do more, then AppScript will be your friend.
Yeah, and AppScript is just absolutely. I mean, it's a whole other thing, but right, it's fantastic. I do love AppScript. The geek in me just loves coding and creating things. And the great thing about the APIs and AppScript is that it's so well documented. You can, with just a little bit of coding knowledge, you can create really powerful scripts. There's lots of examples in GitHub, but also examples that are linked through from the API documentation pages that Google have. And you can just, you can click and explore, you can use some of their example code, and then you can kind of tweak it and develop it for what you need. Because all our use cases are slightly different. We work in different organizations with different processes, but so we often want a particular bespoke solution that we're looking for, and you can absolutely do that if you want to get into AppScript and create things. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I do love it, I gotta say.
Well, great. Well, thanks for that, Charlie. It's a really great overview of what you can do with GAM. And just a reminder that you can subscribe and watch all of the Apps Events videos on the YouTube channel. So all the previous admin summits covering many different topics, but also the teaching and learning summits. Do you have an admin summit scheduled for next month, Charlie? Have you got a topic yet arranged, or is that going to be a surprise?
It'll be a surprise. We'll have a topic very shortly for next month. Yeah, but we've got one every 2 months, so I think there should be one in November. We'll have a date for, and we'll have a topic for that. But hey, if anyone on the call has a great idea for an admin topic, please let us know. We're really interested in contributions from the community around what you'd like to see, because all this is really about supporting the Google Workspace admin community and what their needs are. So please, yeah, let us know in the comments, drop it in the comments in the videos. Yeah, please let us know if there's anything specific you'd like us to cover, and we'll have a look at doing that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Charlie. Great talking to you. And thank you, everyone, for watching today. Brilliant to have you.